we're gonna talk about how to build strength in terms of how many exercises per muscle group should we do. Now, I know people are gonna be interested particularly about the muscle groups and how to increase strength in a muscle group, but it's actually the wrong question because you don't necessarily build strength in muscle groups, we build strength in movement patterns. How the brain works when it communicates to the body is we have our brain and we got our nervous system that runs down the spinal cord. Out the spinal cord, out the side, all the way along is our nerves. And we send messages from those nerves, and it's just a change in electrolyte balance that causes a muscular contraction and allows our nerves to send signals. So those nerves will send signals, the muscles will contract. I know that bending my arm involves both heads of my biceps, so it will contract both heads of my biceps. This is why you'll never see anyone who has only one bicep being contracted at a time unless they have a neurological injury. So what is the question? If it's not how many exercises per muscle group, it's actually how many exercises per movement pattern. So our major movement patterns for fundamental life is squatting, deadlifting, hinging, overhead pressing, and carrying. Carrying is a little bit different because there's a lot of hand involved. I'll do a separate video on grip. But for the other major movement patterns, our brain has to form these complicated relationships with our muscles to learn how to do these things effectively. Let's say we're doing a deadlift. You could think, okay, well, posterior chain, I'll strengthen my calves, my hamstrings, my glutes, and my spinal erectors. But then if you had me compete against Big Ramy, I would smoke him in a deadlift contest, even if you looked at our backs and you say, clearly Big Ramy looks substantially stronger. The reason for that is because I know how to use my body much more efficiently in a deadlift movement pattern. It's something that I train for and something that he doesn't. So the more time that you could spend doing that movement pattern, the better. But this comes with a caveat. And the answer to the question of how many sets is not as many as possible, because if you practice those sets at, say, 3x10 at 70%, a pretty normal prescription for a novice gym goer, you're gonna do a lot of volume at relatively low intensity compared to your 1 rep max. And when we talk about strength, more often than not, we're simply saying, how much can you lift? How much can you lift for 1 rep if your life depended on it? If we're at 70% of our 1 rep max, it's far too much of an adjustment to talk about how to get to your 1 rep max. If you notice, when pro strongmen do exercises for reps, our technique is dramatically different to when we do it for a maximum. So we need to do very few sets at very high intensities, very low rep ranges. Okay, we're talking 1, 2, 3 rep ranges. The answer then becomes very complicated because it's how much can you tolerate? All of us who have focused on strength have felt when we do a 1 rep max, and it's a true 1 rep max, our nervous system gets burnt out so quickly. You do 1 set of 1, and if you were asked to do 80% of the same load for 1, you can't do it. You can hardly even get yourself at the gym, never mind try to think about doing another high intensity squat or deadlift. So the prescription then becomes partially dependent on your experience. The more experienced you are, the less volume you can do. So when people ask me, well, how often do you train and how much do you train? I actually do less total sets. I train less days per week than I did when I was 16 or 17, even though I'm at a much higher level. So let's break it down. If you're a novice, you can get away with working hard in virtually any rep range and improve because your body, it won't know how to squat or how to log press, how to deadlift, how to do any of your major compound movements. If you're an intermediate, we now have to start to be a little bit more careful about the nervous system, but you won't fry yourself with a 1 rep max. And this is traditionally, we'll see guys between 17 and 20 who can just max and max and max, and somehow they just make progress. Eventually those guys hit a wall. I've been there. I think a lot of us have been there. Then we get to the advanced lifters. And the advanced lifters, you got to be very, very careful. In fact, there should be very few times that you do exercises at the gym that you don't have 1 or 2 reps in the tank. Mathematically, 1 or 2 reps in the tank means that if you're doing a 1 rep max, you're working between 90 and 93% of your true 1 rep max. If I think at the moment I could deadlift 450 kilos, I know I got to take but 10% off of that. And if I'm doing a single, 405 kilos is probably my maximum at the gym. You can do the math for yourself, but let's turn this into an actual prescription. For novice lifters, if you do a 5x5 5 sets, 5 reps for your major muscle groups, for your major movement patterns, I should say. That is a fantastic place to start. If you did that and you worked those movement patterns twice per week, that is plenty of stimulus for you to get stronger. For intermediate lifters, if you were to do a 3x3 at 85 to 80% of your 1 rep max, that's going to get you in a really good spot without burning you out. For our advanced lifters, let's assume that we're trying to peak into our number 1 performance variables. Maximum strength is what you're going for. You're going to want to pick a date about 6 weeks out, and you're going to want to start by doing singles at 85% of what you're capable of, and you want to push that ahead 2 to 3% a week. Personally, I like 1 top set and 2 to 3 back down sets at 70 to 80% of the intensity of your top set. That way, we get the training and the practice in for your 1 rep max, but we still get a little bit of volume. Now, all of this comes with the caveat that there's 2 primary drivers of muscle growth. There's the mechanical tension model, which basically just says the more volume you do at a high intensity, the better off you'll be. And there's the systemic response model, where you'll get a spike in testosterone and growth hormone after lifting heavy. So obviously these programs are very low volume. With muscular tension, we're not getting a whole lot, but we will get a systemic response. It is not the most potent way to put on muscle, but it is a completely valid way for you to get a little bit bigger. So I hope that answers your guys' questions. That's how I would approach it for a novice and intermediate and advanced lifter in terms of number of sets per major movements. If this is a little bit confusing for you, I do have programs. You can go into my website and check the link in the description. I'd be more than happy for you to get those and help you out. It's 12 weeks and it'll take you through everything, your progressions. It'll also come with 12 weeks of education. Thanks a lot, guys. As per usual, lift heavy, be kind. Leave a moose dropping if you could, and we will catch you next time.